Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to take data that you get from a Google Forms survey and export it, clean it up, and then import it into RStudio, and specifically RStudio Cloud. So the reason for this is I'm showing you a free web-based way to collect data and analyze it. And we're going to be doing this using an assignment I gave to my students for the spring 2021 semester, and they jointly decided to do a study on student stress. So I just wanted to show you some fundamental things about Google Forms. We're not going to spend too much time on this. However, I just wanted to show you a couple things that might be helpful to you in the future. First of all, at the top, we can see here are the questions, and if we clicked on this tab, we would see the responses, and we have 45 responses. And I grouped the questions according to topic. So this was the informed consent. We didn't need to go through our institutional review board because this was a class project and only used as a class project. And we talked about internship. This is the one thing I wanted to show you. This is a question, this is a numeric variable on the number of classes that students are taking. And I just want to show you how you can make sure that people put in actually a number and don't write things out. This will make life easier for you later. So if you click on the question, and you want to keep it as a short answer, but if you click these three dots here, you can validate the response, and you can say you want a number greater than 0, and that's what I had before. So you can do that. So that way you can make sure everything comes out in a numeric form. And here are the responses that we have. This is aggregated. And what you get frequencies and percentages for each of these answers, and you could look down. But we want to do additional analysis, and so you can just open this up in a Google Sheet, again, free. So if you click this, I already did it, so it's open here, and this is the way the data comes in. I actually started to clean this up a little bit because I wanted to show you some of this, but not necessarily all of it. So the first thing I do when I do this is make sure that you have the data stored where you want it to be, so you can move it. I have it set in a file that I have student data in. And the first thing that I do is I rename the questions in line 1, because the questions ultimately, when you bring them into R, is going to be the variable name. And so we don't need a variable called what year are you in the MSW program. You want it to be a much more succinct name. So what I do to begin with is I initially will download. If you click here, you can print the survey in the form of, oops, didn't want to do that. You can download it in the form of a PDF and save it. And when you do that, then you can print it out, or you can annotate the PDF to have the variable name. So I'm going to actually put the variable names that we included in our code book for the semester. So this first variable is called year, and this is called intern, and this is called classes, and this one I called age cat because it's the student's age. The question you see is, how old are you? I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. How old are you? But it's not the age as a numeric variable, it's as a categorical variable. So we're going to call this age cat, and we're going to call this race, The next question is, this has to do with class, a lower class, middle class, or upper class. And this one is called sleep. It's asking students how long on average they sleep. This one is called organize. And employ. This is asking students about employment outside of school. And burnout. And we call this V-trauma, vicarious trauma. This is self-care. Now, you don't want to have a space. It makes it hard in R to deal with it. So if we want to make this easier, I do self and then underscore care. Remember, we're preparing data to be brought into RStudio. And you could do this all in R, by the way. I just think it's a little bit easier to do it in Sheets. This is meditate. And we have exercise and yoga. Whoops. Yoga. And naps. And this is our dependent variable stress. So that's very helpful. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, we have numeric variables that are in here. I showed you how to require them in Google Forms. What I also wanted to show you is how we handle some categorical variables that are ordinal. So the way R handles it in presenting data is they automatically put variables, categorical variables, in alphabetical order, and that may or may not work very well for you. So in the case of our class question, we had lower class, middle class, and upper class. And so what I did to, as sort of a standard, because it's ordinal, not like race, which is a nominal variable, we didn't need to worry about that, is we wanted to get rid of R having to deal with alphabetizing those categories. And one way to do that is to put a number in front of it. So we're going to give it the values, we're going to order it with a number in front of it. So we made lower class 1, middle class 2, and if we scroll down, you will see upper class 3. So I wanted to show you that in terms of some of our other ordinal variables and just how I do it. So what I do here, this is the question about how often do you organize yourself, and it's never, oh wait, this one's already done. Never, sometimes, and always. But here we can do this for the next 3 or 4 variables that we have. So we have the employee variable, and that's also ordinal because it denotes how much employment students have. So we want to go from full-time being the most employed to part-time to not employed at all. And the way it was on our questionnaire was full-time was first. So what I do is highlight the entire column, and then if you go to edit, you can do find and replace. And this what we want to do, is, if we can see it, would be helpful. We want to you have to make sure you're spelling everything correctly. So our full-time, that's why I did this, is going to be, we still want to say full-time, but we'll put a 1 in front of it. And you want to make this, by the way, as short as you can, because when you're presenting things graphically in R, if you have a lot of categories, it can distort your picture or make it hard to see. So we're going to just call full-time. Well, it's probably better to do full-time. We should have enough space. And if we hit replace all, we will see that there were 14 times that it was changed, and we actually see the full times now with a number in front of it. Now we'll go, whoops, that's not where I put it. Part-time. I'm going to show you an example later where you mess up, but we'll do that on purpose. Okay, we have part-time, and we're going to replace all of them. And then we have not employed. Not employed. And we'll do 3, not employed, replace all. and we have 8 instances of that. Okay, so we can hit done for this one. This has to do with the amount of burnout that students experience during their program. And again, this is an ordinal variable. So we know it starts with severe burnout, moderate burnout, mild burnout, or no burnout. So we'll again do the same thing and find and replace. And again, I'm putting this here. Now you'll see how we shorten it. We don't want to have severe burnout. We'll just say 1 is severe. Oops. And replace all. And now it's shorter, but it keeps the order that we need. And 2 moderate, and we'll replace all of that. And again, we see all of that, and we actually see it happening here. And then we have mild burnout, and we'll see mild, and not at all is our last one. And this will help us when we visualize this later. And we'll say none. And that shortens that out. Now, vicarious trauma, that variable is a nominal variable, so we don't need to worry about this. We have self-care and meditate, which is asking students how often they do this. It does look initially like this is a numeric variable, but it's actually a categorical variable that ranges from 0 is one category, 1 is another, 2 is another, 3 is another, and then 4 or more is another. We have the same thing with yoga, and then the question is about naps. How often do you take naps? And it goes from every day, often, sometimes, or never. And this is actually, well, I don't want to do the last one. So let's, we'll do find and replace. And we'll start with, and again, I'd like to see it change. We'll start with never. We'll replace that with 1, never. Now you could have given it a 0 too, because again, we'll look to put things in numeric order if they're categories, or alphabetical order, whichever comes first. Okay, so we have never. And then we have sometimes. And that would be 2 sometimes. And I think, yeah, every day is the last one. And then 3 often, and 3 often. And then we have every day, written as 2 words, and 4 every day. And let's replace all, and we're done with that. And stress actually had the same categories, but I wanted to show you something with this. So, and this is sort of just validating and checking your data. So if I go find and replace, we're going to start the same way we did before with never is 1. And again, this is just creating a way to sort things when we get to R. Whoops. So nobody said, now it says no matches found. Nobody said they'd never feel stressed. Okay. Then we have sometimes, and we have 2 sometimes. And there are 8 instances. And then we have often, and 3 often. When I hit replace, it says no matches found, but we see often here. Now look at this. This was misspelled, so now we have to make sure. So what my suggestion, as I showed you before, is you're going to want to make sure that the changes that you think are made are actually made. That was sort of my demonstration there. So now we have often, and we'll keep it as 3. So we'll spell it correctly this time. And then we have every day. And for every day. And what we're going to do now is hit replace. And this is, oops, I forgot to change this. This was an open-ended question. Is there anything else you'd like us to know? And we'll just call this comments. And now we are ready to export our data. So the way we want to do that is go File, and we want to download it into a CSV file. And you can't see it here. We'll just go Save. And now it's in our downloads. You can see it right here. And now we're ready to move to R. So I'm going to go to RStudio Cloud. Oops. And I'm going to actually just put this in my sandbox, because I don't think you need to see course-based stuff. It just really wanted to demonstrate this for you. And it's restoring my project. Not quite sure what's in here, but we will see. Doesn't really matter. Now remember that we have our CSV file, and if you've worked with me before, you've just had an RData file in the past. So you haven't sort of seen what's happened behind the scenes. And what I'm going to do now is, like I said, I wasn't sure what was in here. I'm going to remove everything in my environment here. So we start with, sort of a clean slate. And the first thing we want to do is go to Files, and you'll see that there's really nothing in here. So the first thing that we want to do is upload the CSV file into our Files pane. So let's go Upload, and we'll go Browse. And we know that this was in our Downloads file, and here it is. And we'll hit Open and OK, and now it's in here. Now, we want to keep everything the way it is and make this in our data file that we can deal with in the future. So if you click on this, you'll see what happens. We can import the data set, but it's not going to necessarily have everything that we want in it. I'm going to show you this. Yeah, you need to download other packages, and it doesn't necessarily keep the format that you want. I find it actually easier just to give the file a name that we can refer to in the future, and we'll read it in as a vector and then save it. And that's pretty easy. So if what we want to do is, you can put this in a, you could put this in a script if you'd like, so you could refer to it. I'll do that. So you can, we'll call it the importing script. So you could import any file at any time. You want to give your vector a name. So we're going to give new file a name. That's short. So we'll and then read it in as a CSV file. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an explanation. So we'll call this, I don't want to call it stress because we have a variable called stress. So why don't we call it STUD, like student underscore stress. And we're going to assign it the value of a CSV file. So we'll do read.csv. And the way you do this is to want to just select any file that you want, because we could have a list of 20 CSV files in here. Is we'll say file.choose, that's another R command, open and close parenthesis. And now when we run it, it's going to let us choose whichever we want. And we'll open it. And now you see it's in your environment. Now, what we really want to do is save this as an RData file. And this is your original data file, so you don't really want to mess with it. So I always recommend, if you're going to manipulate a file in some way, keep a pristine version of it. Now, of course, you have the actual data saved as a CSV, well, or as a Google Sheet, and you can export, of course, from Google Forms again. But this would be our original version, and we certainly just do it like this. And we give it our name that we want it. We'll call it Student Stress. And now you have that in perpetuity. So if, like, for instance, we cleaned out our environment pane, and we just clicked on Student Stress, we can load it into our environment. And if we typed in summary, stud underscore stress, you would notice that we have all the variables that we had brought in. These are brought in as character variables, but you'll be able to do any sort of bivariate analysis that you want with it, and the numeric variables are brought in as numeric. Actually, the intern variable is brought in as also as a numeric variable. So that's what I have for you. And just as an example, if I would go to packages and we'll keep, well, I want to show you something else. Yeah, let's keep the HMIS package attached, and if we use the describe function for any of our categorical variables. And now I'm not going to use my attach. So I'm going to put the name of the vector holding our data in it first with a $sign. That's our convention. And we put in, say, race. We can see that we have 45 respondents that we know. We have data for all of them with 4 distinct categories, and the statistics or the counts for those. So now you could do any kinds of regression or bivariate analysis, and I hope you found this video helpful.